All right, this might sound strange coming from a realtor, but sometimes the best advice that I can give somebody is actually not to sell their home. And that's usually not what they expect to hear. Most people reach out already leaning one direction. They've probably been watching the market, they've seen a neighbor sell, or they read a headline, or they've even had a conversation at work or church. And they're probably thinking to themselves, maybe now is the time to sell my house. I want to talk honestly about when selling your home in Northeast Arkansas might actually be the wrong move. Not forever, just not right now. And how waiting can sometimes put you in a much better position later. Welcome to my channel. My name is Talon. I'm a local real estate agent here in Northeast Arkansas, specializing in buying and selling homes for people in Northeast Arkansas, if you couldn't imagine. If you're watching this video, chances are you probably are either very entertained by me, which I highly doubt, or you might be considering buying or selling in the near future here in Northeast Arkansas. So in the event that is the case and you do not already have a go-to realtor, all my information is down below. Send me a message. I would love to connect with you. So I sat at a kitchen table not long ago with a homeowner who was ready to list. It was a nice home and good area, nothing wrong with it. And they were confident selling it was the right move until I asked one simple question. I asked them, where are you going next? And to my surprise, there was a pause. They had ideas and possibilities and a few maybes, but no clear plan. And that's when I slowed everything down. I started to pump the brakes because selling without knowing your next move isn't a strategy, it's a gamble. Here's something most people don't realize until they're in it. When you sell your home before you know where you're going, you lose what we call leverage. You are no longer choosing, you are reacting. You're watching the clock, you're worried about timing, you're trying to line things up perfectly in a market that doesn't move perfectly. And that pressure usually shows up in one of three ways. You settle for a home you're not excited about, you overpay just to secure something, or you rush a decision that you'll be living in for years. Waiting is not about fear, it is about control. And I've also worked with sellers who, listed their house immediately because the house could sell, but probably shouldn't have yet. Not because it was bad, but because it wasn't ready to compete. Maybe the roof was borderline, or maybe the exterior needed some attention. Maybe the inside had small issues that felt bigger to buyers, and maybe it just needed time and intention. They just had this mentality of, oh, we'll just see what happens. And honestly, as a realtor right now, I am leaning away from working with the sellers that are just saying, well, I just want to list it to see what happens. Usually what ends up happening is your realtor and you end up butting heads. The realtor ends up spending a lot of time and money into a product that was never going to sell in the first place. And like I said, what usually happens is the home sits, showings slow down, feedback gets repetitive, price reductions start. You've heard it all before. And now instead of selling from a position of strength, they're negotiating from a position of frustration. If you've sold your house before and made these decisions, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In many cases, waiting 60 to 90 days and preparing properly would have meant a better first impression, strong offers, less stress, and let me tell you, more money. Literally this past week, I met with a seller. They've been trying to sell it with another realtor for years now. And I literally told her, hey, it might not even make sense to list a home right now. We might want to wait until around March or April. And I have to communicate the truth to my clients when they ask for it. Most realtors cower down, they back down, they're afraid of losing business. Therefore, they don't actually even tell you the truth that's actually going to cause your home to sell. They're just ready to put a sign in the yard to whatever property they can get. But if you've ever sold real estate before, or if you have ever listed your home with a realtor and it failed to sell, you know that doing that can actually cost you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money. And this is the part that people don't like talking about, but it matters. Sometimes people want to sell because they feel pressured, not prepared. A neighbor sold and a friend says, hey, now's the time, and the headline scared them and they're tired of the house or they want change. Those feelings are real, but they're not always good decision makers. Think about it. If I bought and sold something every time a salesperson called me, every time there was a sale going on, I probably wouldn't have any money in my bank account. The best sales happen when sellers are intentional and not reactive. When the decision is calm, not rushed, not emotional, not driven by fear of missing out. We all have this built into our DNA. Hey, Sally Sue down the road sold their house for a lot of money, and I know my house has way better gizmos and gadgets than theirs, so I could probably make a whole lot of money too. And all of a sudden, you find yourself in the predicament I'm explaining. Now, look, you can do what you want. You're a grown adult. You don't have to believe some cheeky salesman, right? At the end of the day, if you could care less about that stuff, sure, go ahead and list your property. But hear me out. You could be setting yourself up for failure rather than success. There's also a moment that surprises a lot of homeowners, and it's when we actually run the numbers. Before you call that realtor on the billboard that you've never met before, or your cousin that sold one house last year, you might want to consider doing a net sheet on what your net number looks like if you were to actually sell your home at this list price. After commissions, closing costs, taxes, repairs, moving expenses, sometimes the net number is not what you expected. And selling only makes sense if it improves your situation, not just changes it. I have seen so many people lose a lot of money in the past year because they bought and overpaid for property when interest rates were really low. And therefore they overpaid for property. Now all of a sudden, interest rates are back at the norm and people aren't paying top dollar for property like that anymore. And now they're stuck with a house that they don't really like because they got in a rush and their payment's okay, their interest rate's okay, but maybe they don't need this house anymore. Maybe it's not exactly what they thought it would be in the beginning. And now all of a sudden they're trying to sell it for a profit and actually they're losing money because they overpaid on a property and got in a rush and did not look at the net number whenever they listed it. If waiting 6 months gives you more equity, better timing, more options, and less pressure, that's not a delay. That's called strategy. Here's what I call the future self-test. And this is a question that I ask my sellers that are unsure. Picture yourself literally 1 year from now. Do you feel relief that you sold when you did, or stress from how fast everything happened? The right time to sell usually feels clear before you list, not just exciting. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying selling fast is a bad thing. I remember one time I was making some phone calls in a very popular neighborhood in Paragould, and I met a man on the phone and he told me, yeah, I'm gonna be selling my home in the next probably year or so. Well, long story short, I sent him my contact information. He called me 2 weeks later and said that he had a house, or that he actually had a life-changing situation where he needed to sell this house as quick as possible. We put it on the market and literally sold it for above asking in 3 days in 2025. Yes, that happened in little small town Paragould. Now look, the guy sold it quick, but he actually made a lot of money and he came to find out that it was the right decision to make. So I'm not just trying to discredit, putting your home on the market and selling it in a fast time. I'm just saying we need to think about things before we just list them with Joe Blow because they called me or they're always posting on social media and they want me to sell my house through them and all that stuff. At the end of the day, you have to be a little selfish when it comes to putting your home on the market and make sure that this is a decision that best suits you and your family. Selling your home should move your life forward, not box you into a corner. And sometimes the smartest move is to wait, plan, and position yourself better. And if you're unsure whether now is the time or if you should wait, feel free to use the contact information below. Send me a message. I would love to schedule a phone call with you. Let's weigh out the pros and the cons of selling versus waiting right now. If you are not in a desperate need to move, take the time, get some information, interview different agents, and let's talk about this logically rather than just emotionally. I know you're wanting to plan a trip to Hawaii on the profits that you're going to make from the home. I get it. And feel free to take your favorite realtor with you. I'm not going to, But at the end of the day, before you book that, let's sit down and have a conversation and actually see if it makes sense to do this now or to wait. And if it means waiting, that's okay. There's no harm in that. I remember I had a client that was struggling to sell his home with another agent, interviewed me. He was actually my chiropractor and wanted to see maybe what I could do differently. And I had to have an honest conversation with the guy that cracked my back all the time and told him that it didn't really make a lot of sense in that moment to list his home because we just couldn't change the market that we were in. Well, and he agreed with me and he respected the fact that I was honest with him. 8 months later, he gave me a call and thanked me for telling him the truth. And we were able to put the home on the market 8 months later. We ended up selling the property for him. Sure, it didn't happen in the second that he wanted it, but it did happen when it really needed to happen. So like I said, if you need a realtor, send me a message. All my information is down below. I would love to have an opportunity to earn your business or at least tell you the truth. So if you liked this video or got some value from it, make sure to click the subscribe button for more content coming at you. Like it, comment something that you learned. Again, my name's Talon at Keller Williams Realty.